Welcome back. This is Mike Gardina with GardinaLifeCoaching.com. And does your spouse ever seem to put other people ahead of you? Well, let's kind of talk about some of the reasons why and how do we prevent it. Let's start with some symbolism that actually happens in the ceremony of getting when you get married. I'm thinking of this in more of the traditional sense here of when the father of the bride walks her down the aisle and hands her over to the young man to be her new husband. Basically, when you go back to the early time periods when there were more arranged marriages, when a father of who had a daughter would arrange to a young man's family to arrange a marriage, and the young man's family would pay a dowry over to the daughter's father for basically her. So she's basically being sold to them as an arranged marriage. And as he would walk her down the aisle, the father basically was giving up his duty to be her safety and security and taking care of that young lady to the new groom. And then when he accepts her, that's him accepting to take care of her for the rest of her life. And that's basically how some of the symbolism of a marriage and the parents' job, then the daughter's parents are done. You know, now it's on the husband to take care of her from here on out. So that's the beginning of their new life and their new commitment. The new couple now is starting their new life together, and they're making a commitment to each other as an unbroken bond that they're forever the quote, to death do us part. And it means to death do us part, not until I'm unhappy or this happens in our relationship. There's no really criteria that says, only to this, you meet these certain conditions. It's a lifetime commitment to the other person. In order for lifetime commitments to be fully bonded, you really have to be both in this, and you both have to be totally committed to that relationship. So within that relationship, there is a form of hierarchy. And basically, in order for the relationship to withstand the test of time, is the commitment to marriage has to be the highest of all the hierarchy here within the context of a marriage. And then second typically follows by the children. Third is usually parents of both the husband and the wife. And then fourth would be just other people, friends and family and other acquaintances. But what all too often happens is this couple tends to gravitate and put more energy, more focus on either the children or the parents, and sometimes even friends that are out there. And that can be a significant problem. What happens is parents, when they have a child, is it's a little baby. You need to nurture it. It needs to be brought up, and it needs all kind of time and effort to raise that child. Well, like all things in life, is we have to understand balance, and that child does deserve your undivided attention to a point. There is a point when the marriage still has to have the hierarchy of being the most important thing here. It doesn't mean you neglect the child. Now, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that, though, that you want to nurture that child and protect that child, but you also have to focus on and manage your marriage. If you don't, there's a lot of things that can happen. This is a typical scenario now. Again, all relationships are a little bit different in different modes, but a wife or the mother will tend to spend more nurturing time with the child, and the father, he's off working, let's say, out of the household, and when he comes home, there's no attention to him. The wife is giving all 100% attention to that child. So the husband will have that tendency of feeling less important, less significant, and he has to go meet that need somehow, and he starts to venture out of the relationship. He'll start to want to spend more time with his friends, or he'll want to stay at work late, work harder at work, or find something else to help him fill that need for significance, because he's no longer getting it from his wife. And there can be resentment that builds up here, both to the child and to the wife, because the man is sitting there thinking that, well, before the baby came along, things were just great, and as soon as the baby came along, she spends all of her time with him, and hardly any with me. Well, again, that can be considered selfish on his part, but he also has a need he has to meet. So there has to be a compromise here. There has to be balance in that relationship. So the wife has to find some time to be able to still give to that husband. And at the same time, that husband has to do some things for the child to relieve some duties for the wife so that she can maybe do some things for him. So it's a negotiation, something you need to talk about. But it's one of the things that just tends to happen in relationships where you just wake up one day and the husband is really upset and pissed off, and the wife is always doing all the duty, the work with the child, and you just kind of get settled into those roles, and then the marriage starts to divide, and that's what we're trying to avoid, that type of thing. Now, when it comes to parents, it tends to be a little bit more one-sided. We have a strong bond with our parents because they raised us. We've known them for all of our life. It's hard to just disconnect that and change that. So we don't want to disconnect it, but we want to be able to understand where the boundaries are. Because what happens is as you spend more time with a parent, the other spouse is home alone and feels resentment. They're not feeling they're feeling left out. Not significant, less loved, and that's a problem. Now there are situations when a parent may be elderly or in need, or an accident may have happened or something where they actually need you. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't spend that time with them, but you have to understand that there still is that spouse at home that you need to deal with, as well as your parents. So coming up with the right boundary of that dynamic is really important. So how do we correct this or prevent it from actually happening? Well, the first thing you got to remember is your marriage is first, and is remember your marriage vows, and going back to the death till death do us part type of thing. And marriage is a big deal. Some people like to think that, well, a marriage is just a piece of paper, it's a legal document, but it's not. It's a commitment that you have to your spouse, that you're really going to honor them and put them first in all events. So it is a big deal. You need to take it that way. But you got to work as a team to support the needs of both people. The one of the spouses, wife or the husband, may need to spend more time with the kids than normal. For you may have a special needs child. So just discuss all that up front as to what's acceptable to each one, so that you can kind of figure out what works for the family dynamic so that everybody is happy. The objective is to keep everybody as happy as we can, and we know we can't make everybody happy, but we surely can try to get as much as possible. And like everything, there's ups and downs, right? There's going to be some time periods where you're going to spend more time with a child because of a sickness or something, and then you can compensate by spending some more time, go away for the weekend with your spouse. Same thing with a parent. If you were spending a lot more time with a parent because they're sickly or they need some things done, they're moving or whatever, well, then you need to go back and spend more time with your spouse to help compensate for that. So there's a balance and ebb and flow of what you're doing. And you have to realize that being self-aware of all this when it's happening, and that's a big key. And a lot of us have a real problem with self-awareness. We just do it. It's natural. We just feel like someone calls, we jump up and go do it, or there's someone crying, we just jump up and do it. And I'm not saying we shouldn't do those things, but recognizing that you're doing it is just realize what you're doing and why you're doing it. And there may be a great reason that why you're doing it, which is fantastic. But you just have to understand it, that, okay, because I had to do that, this over here was neglected. So now I need to go back and try to repair this, to fix this, so that everybody's as happy as you can make them to be. And I know I'm a parent, and I know that when you have kids and you don't want them to feel unloved and unneedy, but realizing that they'll be just fine if you don't spend every waking minute with them, or do every little thing for them, or basically be there for them all the time. They're going to be just fine if you're away for a little bit. If you happen to go on a long weekend, let them spend time with the grandparents so that you can kind of still work on your marriage while the kids are preoccupied with somebody else. So realizing that they'll be okay. And the same thing with your parents. I know some parents have a real hard time letting their children go, but realizing that's something that they have to learn to work on themselves. You can't do that for them. They have to understand that there's a difference here. You're married now. You have a commitment over here. So they have to understand that their life is changing a little bit, and that's a problem for them. But they can work through it and they'll survive through it. You can't, basically neglect your husband or wife because you feel bad for your parents because you're not there with them anymore. That's just being selfish, honestly. So realizing that they'll be okay. And when you have elderly parents, again, that can be even more difficult because they play the guilt on you that, I raised you, I had you do this, and now I need a time of need, and you need to be here for me. And you do need to be there for them. You need to take care of them as much as you can, but you got to realize that you still have the marriage, you still have a life away from that you have to manage and make sure is still intact. Well, thanks for watching. And if this episode touched you in any way, please hit the like button below. And remember that your marriage has really got to be first. If you can't take care of your marriage first, then the relationship with the kids is not going to last as well. We got other significant issues will happen. The same thing with parents. I mean, to have that loving relationship for everybody to be around is, you got to put that marriage first and foremost. So if I can help you in your relationships with family members, with your husband or wife, or anything else in life, please reach out to me at mike@gardinalifecoaching.com. Visit the website at gardinalifecoaching.com. Please hit the subscribe button below. Make sure you don't miss any future episodes, and leave me some comments. Let me know what you think about that and any other future episodes that you'd like to see. Thanks.